Thank Hashem. We're able to learn every day. Today we're going to start on Daf Lamed, right on the top. Easy.
Yeah, the last few missions start the same way.
Yeah.
Which Shoshachin is Basra? Famous Masechta? Shoshachin. Metzah. There's Masechta that's not Shoshachin.
Shloisha Achim. You have three brothers. Yeah. We're going to have several Mishnayos like this. We had already some Mishnayos like this, and this we're continuing. Shloisha Achim. Three brothers, Shnayim Mem Nesum Shtei Achayos. Two of them are married to sisters. Remember, let's give a case. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Three brothers. Reuven and Shimon are married to Leah and Rachel. Reuven, let's keep it simple. The older one is Leah. It's Reuven, and Shimon's married to Rachel, and Levi would be married to Miriam, all right? Just a random choice. Ve'echad Nasir Nachris. One of them is married to a not a Nachris over here does not mean a non-Jew. A Nachris means a foreigner that's not one of the sisters.
Oh, what?
A regular woman, a regular Jewish woman. What happens if one of the husbands of the sisters dies? Reuven or Shimon. So let's say Reuven passed away. Yibum cannot be performed on Leah by Shimon because that's his wife's sister. There's only one option. There's only Levi. So Levi does Yibum on Leah. Fine. No problem. However, Umes, then Levi passed away. So there's only Shimon left. Now, Levi had two wives. He had Miriam, and he also had Leah. So her Rishayna Yetzi Mishum Achaisisha. Rishayna means the one that he was married to originally.
Originally was a Nachriya.
Yeah, that's the problem. So Harishayna, Rashi pushes it, helps us out. Rishayna over here is going to switch. Over here, Rishayna means Harishayna Lenafila. The first one that he married as Yibum, that cannot be married, that cannot go to Shimon because that's a Chaisisha. That's Shimon is married to Rachel and Leah is his wife's sister. And what about Miriam? Miriam was a co-wife to Leah. And because he can't do Yibam on Leah, so he can't do Yibam on the Tzara either. That's the first Mishnah. First Mishnah of Yevamos.
Ends up
going free without Yibam or Chalitza. Okay. Now's where it gets very interesting. What happened was, you have three brothers, all's good, right? And one of the husbands of the sisters, Reuven, passes away. Okay, now it's Levi's turn. Levi's up for Yibam. Instead of doing Yibam, he does Mimer. It's quasi marriage. It's a beginning of a marriage. Now, what that did was that brought Leah into his household, which affects Miriam as a tzara with Leah. That means when Levi now dies, that mimer brought Leah into the house, and now really Miriam is a tzara with Leah, and now she should go free. If mimer is, let's say, like mimer, like Beishamai held. Beishamai was a real marriage. So then Leah would go free. Not Leah. Then Leah always goes free because she's the sister. She's the wife's sister. But Shimon is married to Rachel, and Reuven passed away, and now Levi passed away, and there was only mimer that Levi had performed on Leah. So what's going to be with Miriam? Is she a tzara or not? Mishnah says, "Asaba mimer omeis." Nachros cheletzes fleimus yabemes. It's like this middle sort of category. She does chalitza, but she doesn't do yibum. Okay. So the Gemara points that out. The Gemara points out, time David b'maimer. It's all because of the mimer that's creating this relationship between the two wives. Miriam, who was a foreigner here, which l'chaira yibum should be performed on her, but we say no because the mimer was performed on Leah, so that brings Leah into the marriage, and now Miriam becomes a co-wife. But let's say there was no mimer. So let's talk about the case again. Reuven passed away, and he leaves his wife Leah open for yibum or chalitza. But there's only one brother that's able to do that because Shimon is married to Leah's sister, Rachel. So there's only Levi that's eligible for yibum. And now no mimer was performed, and Levi passed away, and now Levi leaves over Miriam. Based on what we learned in the Mishnah, Miriam is allowed to Shimon with Yibum. Nachris Yevumi Nami Miyavma. You'll be able to do Yibum on Miriam. Sounds like a regular case. What's the chiddush over here? Amar Rav Nachman Zaysimer Saint Zika Vafila Bechadacha. Nachman says it's a huge chiddush. Huge chiddush. Remember, we had a concept of Zika. Zika means that there's an attachment. Who was able to perform Yibam on Leah? Only Levi. So if there's Zika and there's only one brother, that's a very strong Zika. That would mean that Levi is attached to Leah. Levi being attached to Leah should affect Miriam as being a co-wife to Leah. Now when Levi passes away, so Shimon, the remaining brother, his wife is a sister of Leah, and Leah is a co-wife Bezika to Miriam. They never did any marriage in that at all, but it's because of that Zika attachment. Good morning. So it should be a problem. Rav Nachman says, Zaysei Meres, from the diuk from the Mishnah doesn't say this clearly. The Mishnah only says that if you did mimer, then you can't do yibum. All right, we learned from that. If you didn't do mimer, then you do yibum. The Zika. Nachman says the proof that Zika is nothing. Ain't Zika.
When they make a gzeira, it strengthens the.
Yeah, but over here it would just be that the Zika is not strong, and it leaves Miriam free. Okay, let's go further. Shlei Shachim, new Mishnah. Shlei Shachim, second Mishnah on Daf Yomi. Shlei Shachim, there's 3 brothers. Yeah, we don't have to switch the names. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Shnayim Mem Nesuin Shtei Achayis. We don't have to switch those names either. There's Leah and Rachel. Leah's married to Reuven and Rachel's married to Shimon. Ve'echad Nasi Nachris. And the third brother, Levi, is married to Miriam. Mesa Nasi Nachris. This is the opposite case. Levi passed away. Okay. Who's going to do Yibam on Miriam? You have 2 options. Could be Reuven or Shimon. Yeah, this was the foreigner. This is not one of the sisters that's eligible now for Yibam. This is the foreigner. One of them does Yibam. Who should do Yibam? Let's say it was Reuven. Reuven does Yibam. Now Reuven has 2. Now Reuven, I'm going to be confused with the names. So just follow. So Reuven now has 2 wives. Who are his wives? Leah, his original wife, who happens to have a sister that's married to Shimon, and also Miriam, that used to be Levi's wife. He did Yibam on her. Umeis. Now Reuven passes away. It's a regular case. Shimon, the remaining brother, cannot do Yibam on his sister-in-law, right? On Leah, it's his wife's sister. Right. Can't do Yibam on Miriam. It's a co-wife of his wife's sister. It's a tzara. It's the first Mishnah in Yevamos. Harishayna over here Rishonim switches meanings. His original wife, which is Leah, she does not do Yibam because it's his wife's sister-in-law, and right now in two ways. Vishniya, and the second wife, which is Miriam, Misham Terasa. It's the co-wife of his wife's sister. Talking about Shimon that's married to Rachel. Cannot do Yibam on Leah, that's his wife's sister. And because Miriam was part of that family in her second marriage, so and now Reuven passed away, so Shimon can't do Yibam on Miriam either. No chalitza either. Nothing. It's a tsaras erva. There's nothing.
That's what I said.
Yeah, I mean that was like the first few blot of the Masechta went through what's that from and how does that come about. Okay. So far so good. So far, no chidushim. Asaba maimer umeis. Okay, again, Levi passed away first. That wife, Miriam, is eligible to the two brothers for Yibam, Reuven or Shimon. In our case that we had before, Reuven did Yibam, and then Reuven passed away. The question was, what's going to be with, it wasn't even a question. We just said that Shimon can't do Yibam on of course, Reuven's first wife. That's his wife's sister. And he also can't do Yibam on. Now what we're introducing is that Reuven doesn't actually do Yibam on Miriam, on this foreigners. What he does is Maimer, which is a quasi marriage, more than it's just Zika, more than nothing. It's a beginning of a marriage. So what happens then? It's a rabbinic sort of marriage. So Asaba Maimer, Umeis. Now he passed away. So is Miriam part of his family? So what happens is Nachris, this Miriam, she has to do chalitza. She's left over for Shimon after Levi passed away, and now after Reuven passed away, and she was almost in Reuven's family. She can't do Yibam on Shimon. Shimon can't do Yibam on her because she was slightly part of the family, which means she was sort of a tzara to Shimon's wife's sister, through the Maimer. And now because she's a tsaras erva, so she can't do Yibam, but at least she does chalitza, because the Maimer was a partial marriage.
What were the details with sorry, you can't have two sisters?
So what would happen is you can't have two sisters as
co-wives at the time were okay.
Yeah, you could have a co-wife. Problem is that if there was a case of Yibam, and one of the person that was the brother, the remaining brother was related to one of the widows. So then you can't do Yibam on that relative. Could be a daughter, a mother-in-law, could be a sister of his wife. There's a lot of possibilities there, 15 possibilities. And even if there's a co-wife there that's not related, because one of them is exempt, the other ones are also exempt. That's what we learned at the beginning of the Masechta. So now, one of the co-wives that was a foreigner here was not 100% part of that family. Question is, so what happens then? He doesn't do Yibam on his brother's original wife because that's his wife's sister. Right. What about that co-wife that was partially brought in, Miriam? So we say that you can't do Yibam, but you do Chalitza. Okay, we have the same diuk over here as we would have before. Let's say you didn't do Maimer. You didn't do Maimer. So what would be then? You'd be allowed to do Yibam. Zika.
Could do Yibum without doing Maimer?
Yeah, you can. But what we're saying here is that there's two steps to this. What happened was Levi passed away first, leaving Miriam available to two brothers that could do Yibam on her. Reuven or Shimon. Turned out Reuven was about to. He did a Maimer and he passed away. Let's say he didn't do the mimer. So that's what I'm just bringing up, that the zika would be nothing. That's the diak.
Right.
This is less of a zika because this is a zika to two brothers.
That's for sure.
This is a potential to Ruvain or Shimon. In our first Mishnah, it was Ruvain that passed away. And the only person that could do Yibam, there was only potential to Levi. So the Zika only to one. And even over there, we said a Zika of one person is not, of one brother was nothing.
If Levi wanted to do Yibum on Miriam, that would be mutar, because even though there was mimer, it wasn't really a full marriage.
So yeah, that's what we were saying. So we're saying that Reuven passed away. Miriam used to be Levi's wife. Levi passed away and left Miriam over for Yibam to Reuven. Now, Reuven didn't do a Yibam, instead he did a mimer.
Yeah, so that would be okay.
So it turns out that it's not fully okay. And now when Reuven passes away, Shimon, who's left, would only be able to do chalitza on Miriam because she was sort of part of his wife's sister's family. Okay.
Right.
The Gemara says, Hasul lamali hainu hach. These two Mishnayos are really the same thing. Why do I need this Mishnah? It's even worse. Hashto ma hasam dachesi shavitzar lenachris. Amrit. Nachris asura. Hacher de nachris havitzar lachesi shalei kolshkin. Let's take a look. What happened over here? Mishnah number 1. Achais Isha. Who passed away over there? It was Reuven that passed away in the first Mishnah. And Levi does mimer on Leah. We say that not only, when Levi passes away, we say that not only does Shimon not do Yibam or Chalitza on Leah, that's obvious, but because Leah started to enter into the marriage, he can't even do Yibam on Miriam, which was originally totally eligible to him. What messed up the Yibam on Miriam was a quasi tzara coming into it, an achais isha coming into Levi's marriage, the mimer. So if over there the achais isha that's not even part of the marriage comes into the marriage slightly because of mimer, and now you can't do Yibam on Miriam. So in our case, the original marriage was here. Levi passed away.
Is this
and
Durabanan, obviously? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it's Durabanan. Levi passed away, and who was Reuven's first wife? The original wife was Leah. So this marriage originally has an erva, and now you start to bring in a tzara. So we say that over there you don't do. If you don't do it when the tzara, the erva wasn't even part of the marriage, and it messes up the first wife. So for sure, if the erva is the marriage, and someone's starting to come in, for sure it shouldn't be good. So let's read that again. The achais isha was the tzara when Reuven passes away. I'm on Daf Lamed, right after the second Mishnah. When Reuven passed away, his original wife was an actual erva, and the nachris, which is Miriam, is the co-wife. And we say that a nachris asura, that after the mimer you can't do yibam on Miriam. So hacha the nachris havitzara lachais isha. Over here, after the mimer, Miriam is only entering into the marriage. Like Kolshkein. Is it not a Kal V'chaimer that you can't do Yibam? Okay. My answer is a very interesting answer. Tana, our Tana, Hach Tana Beresha. He taught this first. He taught the second Mishnah first. Now, the second Mishnah was Levi passed away and left over Miriam eligible to for Yibam to two brothers, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven did Maimer. That was the case. V'hach chazia le'ter v'sharya. The first Mishnah, which was Reuven that passed away, and left over Leah to only Levi. Now, Levi does Maimer. Or he doesn't do Maimer. He does Maimer. The Tana originally thought that in that case where Reuven passed away and leaves Leah and Levi does Maimer, originally he thought that when Levi would pass away, his wife is still eligible for Yibam. So he didn't teach the first Mishnah. The first Mishnah that says that she's not eligible for Yibam, originally he held that she was eligible for Yibam. Miriam was eligible for Yibam, even though Leah is part of that marriage with Maimer. He said that he would hold that Maimer was nothing. In our Mishnah, he held that it was Aser. Maimer would Aser. Why? Because Maimer was bringing in Miriam into Leah's marriage. But then he switched his mind. The Tana switched his mind, and he said that the first Mishnah is also Aser, just like the second Mishnah. This that he switched his mind, that made this very special. It's a chiddush. Basically, what the Gemara just did to us is it said, you want to know the truth, the second Mishnah is no chiddush. There is no chiddush in the second Mishnah once you know the first Mishnah. So why do we have the second Mishnah? The first Mishnah is enough. The answer is the second Mishnah we had first, because we thought the first Mishnah, the din would be different. Then we said that the first Mishnah, no. First Mishnah is the same, big chiddush. But once you have that chiddush, you can drop the second one. The Gemara says, no, Mishnah Laizasim Kaimi, you don't drop the Mishnahs. You keep the old one as well. Yeah. Next Mishnah. Shleisha Achim. You have three brothers. What are the names? Reuven, Shimon, Levi. We're holding now page 30. Show me this. Maybe this one.
Oh, they all start the same way.
They all start the same way. Meis Echem Mibale Achoyes, is that one? Meis Echem, yeah, it's going to be this. Yeah. Yeah. They said three men walked into a bar, and the bartender said, "Is this a joke?" Okay. Shleisha Achin. There's three brothers. Shnayim mem nesu and shtei achayos. Two of them, in our case, ignore whatever you have in your translations because I can't follow all of them. Two of them are married to two sisters. We said it's Leah and Rachel. Those are classic sisters. Reuven is married to Leah. Shimon is married to Rachel. Bechad Nasi Nachris, and Levi is married to a stranger, a foreigner, Miriam, foreigner, not one of the sisters. One of the husbands passed away. Reuven. Let's say Reuven. Bekanas Nasi Nachris Esishtay. Levi is the only one eligible anyway. So Levi does Yibam on Leah. He marries Leah. That was the mitzvah. Mesa Ishtay Shalsheni. Shimon's wife passed away. Rachel. This is very interesting. See, originally, when Reuven passed away, Shimon was related to Leah in Ikuntu Yibam because his wife was Leah's sister. So he doesn't get involved in that. So Levi does the Yibam. But now Shimon's wife passed away, Rachel, and he would have been eligible to Yibam had she passed away earlier, but she passed away now. Okay, so now Levi passes away. Is Shimon related to any of Levi's wives? Miriam, for sure not. And Leah, well, his deceased wife, Rachel, was Leah's sister. But if this would have been a regular, she's not living. If this would have been a regular marriage, a regular, no yibum involved at all, and his wife passed away, he'd be able to marry his wife's sister. After she passed away, he's able to marry his wife's sister. Yeah. After she passes away. Here it's more complex because it's not just his wife's sister, it's also his brother's wife. Which, if there's a mitzvah of yibum, then he's allowed to marry his brother's wife. But if there's no mitzvah of yibum, then he's not allowed to marry his brother's wife. So there's another prohibition that's thrown in here. So now the Mishnah says, Harizu asura lavelamis. He's never allowed to marry Leah. Why? Because when Reuven passed away, Rachel was still alive. He couldn't do yibum on Leah. She never becomes permitted afterwards. Hayol v'nesra lav shachas, because there was one moment that there was a potential for yibum, and we said at that time that Leah is forbidden to Shimon. She never comes back to being permissible. Okay, and the marriage to Levi doesn't cleanse that. Yeah, that's what we're saying here. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav. It is a student of Rav. He says, Kol Yevama Sheina Nikarba B'Shas Nefila Yevama Yavayala Hariya Kesh Zach Sheish Labanim Basura. Says this is a regular case of a sister-in-law, a brother's wife. A brother's wife is prohibited to the brother unless there's a mitzvah of yibum. And if there's no mitzvah of yibum, for example, they had children, then she's never becomes permitted to the brother. So in this case also, because at the moment of Reuven passing away, Shimon's wife was alive, which is Reuven's wife's sister. So it's as if Reuven and Leah had children, and Leah is forbidden to Shimon forever. Okay. My Kamashmal, Antonina, what are you telling me? We have that in a Mishnah. We have a Mishnah that says, what is Rav Yehuda Amar Rav telling me? The Mishnah says, what was the case over there? We had Shimon was left, was the only remaining brother. And right from the what happened was over here that first Reuven passed away, and at that moment Leah was forbidden to Shimon, so Levi did the yibum, and then Levi passed away. But before Levi passed away, Shimon's wife passed away, Rachel. So we say that even though Leah is not his wife's sister anymore, his wife is not around anymore. He's not marrying his wife's sister because she passed away. But because originally when Reuven passed away, it was his wife's sister, so it remains forbidden forever. So what's Rav Yehuda Amar Rav telling me? We have it in the Mishnah. Gemara says, "Mao the same could have said, Hani mili hechad lei ichsalei benafila rishayna." This was because she was never eligible at all at the first time. Why? because the whole time that Leah was up for Yibum, Rachel was alive. And who did Yibum instead? Levi. Okay, good. But let's say this was a case we didn't explain. Let's say Levi passes away. What was our case? I'm sorry. First, what happened was Reuven passes away. Reuven passed away and leaves his wife Leah eligible for Yibum only to Levi. In our case, Levi did the Yibum. The Gemara is coming up with a new case. Before Levi does the Yibum, Shimon's wife Rachel passed away. Oh, now, while the Yibum was, before the Yibum was performed, before there's still this, the Zika is still floating around over there, that the attachment of Leah is like reaching out to which brother I'm eligible to. Maybe we could say that she's now eligible to Shimon also, which used to be the husband of Leah's sister, but not anymore because Rachel just passed away. Ema Tishrei, maybe now it's permissible. In our Mishnah, Yibum wasn't performed at all. There was never a heter zika. So it was just a prohibition. But maybe if there was ever a time before the Yibum was performed, before Levi did the Yibum, where Rachel passed away, maybe we'd say it's permissible. Kamash Malan, that we don't say that. Gemara says Hanami Tanina. There's no chiddush in that either. You have a Mishnah that says that clearly. What does it say? Shnei achin esur and shtei achayos. You have two brothers that are married to two sisters. Meis echad miam. One of them passed away. V'achakach meis ishtei shel sheni. And there's only two brothers in this case. There's Reuven and Shimon. Reuven passed away, and so there's no mitzvah of Yibam because there's only Shimon there, and Shimon is married to Leah's sister. There's no mitzvah of Yibam. However, Shimon's wife Rachel passes away. It's exactly the same case. Even before Yibam is performed, which in this case Yibam is never going to be performed, but Rachel, because there was no third brother here, but Rachel passes away, we say that he can never do Yibam on Leah. So what are you telling me that Rabbi Yehuda Marav is teaching me something that wasn't taught in the Mishnah? It was taught in the Mishnah on Daf Lamed Beis. Gemara says no, still different. Why? Over there was no other brother. So there's no Zika. There is no Zika reaching out to any eligible brother here. There was nothing. So because Reuven passed away, there's no eligible brother. She gets stamped as she's mutter l'shuk. There's no mitzvah of Yibam. She's immediately free to marry anyone else. Now you're going to say because Shimon passed away, some sort of Zika takes effect, and there was nothing there. However, what we're saying in the case of Rabbi Yehuda Marav, Aval Hachad, Leyet Chalei Mehai Beis Lagamri. Why? Because we're talking about a case of three brothers. Maybe we could say that if Rachel passed away before Levi does the Yibam, since she is eligible for Yibam at this time, she's not immediately stamped that she's muteres l'shuk, that she can marry anyone. Maybe we could say that because this Zika is still going out, I know not to Shimon, but it's going out to Levi. And now when Shimon's wife passes away, maybe it just extends over to Shimon. I could say that it would be muter. So Kamash Malan, Rabbi Yehuda Marav tells me that it's a surah. Okay. New Mishnah. Shleisha Achim, three brothers. Yeah. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Shnayim mem nasuy shtei achayos. Two of them are married to two sisters. Reuven's married to Leah. Shimon's married to Rachel. V'echad nasi nachris. Once, and Levi's married to Miriam. Girish echad mibali achayos es ishtei. one of them divorces his wife. Who divorces his wife? Let's say Reuven. Reuven divorces his wife Leah. It's not a good example. There's others here that are married to the sisters, but that's not our issue. Now Levi passes away. Okay. Levi passes away. So Miriam could do Yibam on, Reuven or Shimon could do Yibam. What's the problem? On Miriam. So she's not related to any of them. She's a foreigner. Bekansa Megarish. Well, Reuven is without a wife. So he marries Miriam, does the mitzvah of Yibam. Umeis. Now Reuven passes away. Seems like there shouldn't be any problem here. Even though Reuven did have a previous wife that was a sister of Shimon's wife, but she was divorced. She was divorced. By the time Miriam entered into Reuven's house, Leah was out of the house. So that makes Miriam not a co-wife to Leah, and she's eligible to Shimon. This is what we said in the first Mishnah, that from those 15 relatives, if one of them is divorced or passed away, we say that the co-wife is permissible. That's exactly our case. Since Leah was divorced, by the time Miriam comes in, so it's not Miriam isn't a co-wife with Leah is not a co-wife with Miriam, and Yibum could be done by Shimon on Miriam. Easy. However, all of this is straightforward until you start being medayik. You start saying what this implies. But let's say the case was slightly different, then it starts to get complicated. Why did you tell me that this was the case? If you would have told it to me different, then the halacha would have been different. Okay, let's take a look. Taima, the reason why you said what you said was the girish v'achakach meis. First, Reuven divorced Leah. Then Levi passed away. By the time the Zika, the eligibility of Miriam for Yibam, Reuven was already not married to Leah. Aval meis v'achakach girish. But let's say Levi passed away, and both of the Reuven and Shimon are married. And then Reuven says, you know what, I'm going to get divorced. And he divorces Leah, Asura. Then if you follow that through, that he divorces Leah, he marries with Yibam, he marries Miriam, then Reuven passes away, then we would say that Shimon is not eligible. Shimon cannot do Yibam on Miriam. On Miriam. Leah was divorced. Shimon is married to Rachel. Reuven's married to Leah. Levi passed away. After Levi passes away, Reuven decides that he wants to divorce. He wants to divorce Leah. Now, before he divorced Leah, there was already a Zika from Miriam to Reuven and Shimon. Now he divorces Leah. We're going to say that that Zika creates a prohibition, and now when Reuven passes away, Miriam and Leah were considered co-wives bezika. Yeah, they were never in the same house because Reuven divorced her before he married. Before he did Yibam on Leah. But at least she was part of the household when Levi passed away. That's the whole catch over here. You hear what's going on? There's Zika, even though there's two brothers. Who are the two brothers? Reuven and Shimon were eligible to do Yibam on Miriam. And nevertheless, we say that that's considered a strong enough zika that it makes Leah a co-wife of Miriam. The Gemara says, 1 second, it's good we did this Gemara all in one day, this Amud, because the first Gemara that we learned, we said exactly the opposite. We said that if you did Maimer, then it's considered part of the household, and then you can't do Yivum, you can only do Chalitza. But if you didn't do Maimer, then she would be eligible. Same case, right? Who passed away over there? Mace. Yeah, either one, the first Mishnah, the second Mishnah. But the first Mishnah was where Reuven passed away and left Levi to do Maimer. We said that if Levi does Maimer, then Shimon, after Levi passed away, Shimon can't do Yibam on Miriam. But if there was no Maimer, then he can do. There's Zika. There was only one brother that was eligible. You said over there, Amar Rav Nachman, Ein Zika afilu b'chad achad. Zika's nothing. Over here, comes along Rav Ashi from this Mishnah and says, Yesh Zika. Zika is something afilu b'trei achad. This is like a polar machlaikas. Umar says, Rav Ashi kasha de Rav Nachman. According to Rav Ashi, there's a kasha of Rav Nachman. He said at the beginning of today's Gemara that we're learning. Amalach Rav Ashi would respond, the diuk that you had on that first Mishnah was not a good diuk. The same halacha would apply, even if you didn't do Maimer. How did Rav Nachman come out with that? Because Rav Nachman said, what this implies is that if you would have not done Maimer, then it would have been mutter to do Yibam. Comes along Rav Ashi and says, no, even without Maimer, the same halacha would have applied. So why do you mix in the Maimer? Why do you mix that in? Rav Nachman has a point. Says, V'hadaktani Maimer, that you mixed it in was to tell me a different diuk, to imply something else. Lafuke Beis Shammai, Damri Maimer Kana, we were excluding Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai holds that Maimer is a complete marriage. Maimer Kinyan Gomer. What would happen if we would accept Beis Shammai? Then we would say that Miriam doesn't even need Chalitza. It's considered marriage. She's a tzara to Leah. Kamash Malan, we don't go like Beis Shammai and Miriam needs Chalitza. That's why we mentioned Maimer, to teach me that I don't follow Beis Shammai. Kamash Malan like Beis Shammai. Okay. But all we did right now is where we have a contradiction between a statement of Rav Nachman and a statement of Rav Ashi. Rav Nachman's was on the first Mishnah. Rav Ashi is on the 1, 2, 3, on the fourth Mishnah. If there's a concept of Zika, and no one said it clearly, the Mishnayos didn't say clearly there's a concept of Zika, but it was implied that from the fourth Mishnah that there is, and it was implied from the first Mishnah that there is not. The first Mishnah gets a title Rav Nachman's diuk, and the fourth Mishnah gets a title Rav Ashi's diuk. We just resolved the first Mishnah that there's no question on Rav Ashi because he doesn't use Rav Nachman's diuk the way Rav Nachman did it. He has a different diuk that it's excluding Beis Shammai. Rav Nachman, kasha de Rav Ashi. What about?
I posted 4 different graphics, one for each of the cases on there. That makes it a little bit easier to follow.
Are the names the same, or am I? They're not.
I think the names they're not the same. They're not the same. Okay. But
I'm scared to look.
It makes it a little.
Yeah. Okay. Reuven's married to Rachel. Is that what you're saying?
When you kept this, the first one you kept this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I wanted to do the older daughter to the older son. They wanted to do the first initial. It's better for air miles. Reuven and Rachel. Put the initial there and then collect them together. Okay. We have now Rav Nachman kasha de Rav Ashi. According to Rav Nachman, what are you going to say? Rav Ashi says there's a concept of Zika. You know what? How did you get the concept of Zika? He said, because the Mishnah says like this. Ruvain divorces Leah. Then Levi passed away. Then Ruvain does the Yibam on Miriam. At the time that Miriam was eligible, Leah was already out of Reuven's house. Oh, we were Medayik. That implies that if Leah still would have been in Reuven's house when Levi passed away, it would have been different. The Gemara says maybe it's not so. Maybe Levi passed away and then Reuven divorced Leah. Muteris. It would be mutter. So why do you say that this is specifically the case and not another case? You made a diak over there. It says it's another possibility here. You know what the other possibility is? It's a real big chiddush. Take a look at this. Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Reuven's married to Leah. Shimon's married to Rachel. Levi's married to Miriam. Levi passes away. Reuven does Yibam. Okay. Reuven now has two wives. After a while, he decides to divorce his first wife, Leah. Okay. Now he only has one wife. Now, Reuven passes away. Shimon, who's the remaining wife? Miriam. Shimon maybe could do Yibam on Miriam. Only problem is that they were co-wives a while ago with Leah, which would exempt it. So we say like this: what's the din over there? We had a machlekes about this before. Rabbi Yirmiyah came before and he actually asked from our Mishnah onto the first Mishnah. It says like this: Tavra Mishashanazu Leishanazu. There's actually a machlekes about this in the Mishnayos, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah. And Haitana Savar Misa Mapelas, Vaitana Savar Nasuna Yishainim Apilim. That there's a machlekes. When does the mitzvah of Yibam begin? I know practically it's only when the husband passes away. But does every marriage contain in it a potential Yibam? So if the potential Yibam begins at the time when he married her, so at that moment when Reuven marries Miriam, there's already, potentially, Miriam is already excluded from Shimon if there's ever a Yibam, because Yibam already started. In other words, if you were to mark, if this would be computerized, who would be eligible to Yibam when? When can you start marking down that information? Only after Reuven passes away, or right from when the marriage, right at the beginning of the marriage? So there's an opinion that holds that right at the beginning of the marriage. That means that right when Reuven does Yibam on Miriam, because Leah was part of that family, you can already mark off that Shimon can never do Yibam on either of them. That's the one that holds Nisuan Arishanim Apilim. The other opinion holds, no, when Reuven passes away, you take a look, who's left in the family. If Leah's not there, then Miriam is eligible. The problem is that the first Mishnah told us that if you have a co-wife to an erva, and you divorce the erva, and then the husband passes away, she's mutter. So how could you say Nisuam Arishainim that it's the original marriage that makes this? So we say Tavra. We say you have to divide this up. Misha Shanazu Shanazu. It's actually a machlekes. The author of this Mishnah is not the author of that Mishnah. That's Rav Yirmiyah's view. So if that's the case, then Zuhi, when our Mishnah says that this is the case of the first Mishnah, then Lemuti Kanasal B'Seif Girish, then we're excluding the other opinion that says Kanasal B'Seif Girish, that says if he married Miriam and then he divorced Leah, that she would still be mutter. We're saying no, it's not. It's only if he first divorced and then he married. But we're ignoring if he died, if Levi died, and then he divorced. That's the one case that's getting left out over here. But don't give me that diuk, that if Levi dies and then Ruvain divorces, that there was already a zika. That's not what we're being memayit. We're only being memayit if Ruvain married her and then divorced her, because that's actually a machlaikas. But if he learns like Rava, and everyone agrees to this, that there is no such thing. Sorry. That everyone agrees that if someone marries, that if Reuven marries, Reuven's married to Leah, he marries Miriam, does Yibam, and then he divorces Leah, that everyone agrees that Shimon can do Yibam everyone agrees that you can do Yibam on Miriam because Leah was divorced before Reuven passed away. So Zui Lemutimai. Then why are you telling me the case, such a much more lenient case? What are you coming to exclude? Everything is mutter. The case that the Mishnah told me was that Levi passed away, that Reuven had to divorce Leah before even Levi passed away. It says, Al Karchach Karab Yirmiyah Sfirle. We're going to have to say that Reb Nachman is going to hold like Reb Yirmiyah. Okay? And the diak is different. Well, Rava, but according to Rava, that says everyone agrees that it's mutter, even if Ruvain and that even if Leah and Miriam were in the same household. If Rava learns like Ravashi, that there's a diak over here to tell me that yesh zika, it's only if Ruvain had divorced Leah before Levi passed away, then we understand what the zuhi is. Zui lemute meis belagirish. And it's supposed to be, what is that, Aleph? Meis vachikach girish maybe. Okay. But if he learns like Rav Nachman, that there is no concept of Zika, Zui Lemutimai. So what is the Zui? The Gemara says, well, Rava learns like, basically what we just did was we divided this up. We have so many ways of learning this, that if you ever get stuck, you say that Rav Ashi would learn like Rava and Rav Nachman would learn like Rabbi Yirmiyah, and then it's all good. Okay, let's leave the Gemara over here. Have a good Shabbos, everyone. With Nerv Shabbos. We'll learn on Sunday. We'll try to cover some ground.